So in this video, we're going to take a look at revenue and profit. So from the perspective of the firm a little bit more here, total revenue is equal to the total amount of money a firm earns from selling its products. And we'd say that total revenue is just equal to price times the quantity, as long as that price stays the same. So, if it's one price, a single price, then it's just that times the quantity. Marginal revenue is the additional revenue from selling an additional quantity of products. So typically we would say that it's an additional one quantity is the easy way to think about it. So marginal revenue is equal to the change in total revenue divided by the change in the quantity of products sold, right? So normally that's just one, so it's whatever the change in total revenue is. But we can also calculate the marginal revenue product of a worker, and we would say from adding a worker, the marginal revenue from that worker is however much they brought into the company. For most purposes, we would say for perfectly competitive firms, MR is equal to the price. So we could draw a quick little graph here, and we're going to switch over to the pen, and we'll sketch a picture here. We've got quantity, and it doesn't matter what the quantity of bought and sold is. The marginal revenue will stay the same. So marginal revenue equals the price for the firm. And if that reminds you of something, it's Mr. DARP, and we'll look again at that a little bit later. Let's talk marginal cost. So marginal cost is equal to the additional cost of producing an additional unit or a quantity of units. So it's very similar to marginal revenue, but we define it as the change in total cost divided by the change in quantity of the products being sold, right? The quantity of outputs. So marginal cost and marginal revenue are pretty important for us. In fact, that's how we're going to maximize the amount of profit, is by knowing how to figure those two things out. So what is profit? Well, profit is the amount you get to keep after you subtract out your costs. So it's TR minus TC. It's kind of considered the earnings of the firm after you subtracted their costs. Accounting profit is equal to total revenue minus only explicit costs, whereas economic profit is equal to total revenue minus the explicit minus the implicit costs. Or another way of saying it is TR minus both explicit and implicit costs. And the difference between the two is an implicit cost is just the opportunity cost, right? So if it's what you gave up. Normal profit is equal to zero economic profit, which means a firm is still earning positive accounting profit. So the firm is still profitable from most people's view, but it's also not that it's covering all of its kind of implicit costs. The optimal output rule is probably the most important idea in microeconomics. It's MR equals MC, which is to say produce at the quantity where MR equals MC, or as close to it as you can get without MC being greater than MR. So we would say we don't want marginal cost to be bigger than marginal revenue. So that's the key rule. Now, in the original version of this review guide, this table looked different. In fact, I was trying to madly put this thing together while we were getting ready for AP prep, and I just copied and pasted the numbers from here, and the numbers from the previous one don't make any sense because the marginal costs were all off. So I actually had to change this. So I've changed it in both this key and I've changed it in the original document. But if you already made a copy of the document, then these numbers look totally different for you. So, but anyways, we're going to fill this out with the pen, and then I'll go back later and clean it up and type in it. So the first thing is it says calculate MCTR/MR and circle the profit maximizing level of output. So right beneath this, it might be helpful to write out what are the definitions of these. So marginal cost is the change in total cost divided by the change in quantity. TR is price times quantity. MR is the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity, and profit is TR minus TC. And what we're going to find is that we can use the rule MR equals MC to figure out how much this firm should produce without having to go through and calculate all the TCs, TRs, and profits. So let's get started. Marginal cost. Well, since the change in quantity of output is always 1, that means this denominator right here will be equal to 1 for our entire table here, because the change in quantity will always be 1. So it's just this change, 30, 20, 30, 45, and 70. And we can actually, if we were to plot that, it would be come down, come back up, and go right back up again, right? So you'd have 30 here, and then you'd have 20, and then you'd hit 30 again, right? So 1, 2, 3, and then, you could see it kind of increasing that way. Total revenue, price times quantity. So it gives us the price of $60. So this is 0, 60, 120, 180, 240, and 300. And then marginal revenue is the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity. Now, 2 ways we could do this, right? We could say, well, the change here is 60, the change here is 60. Or you could remember that MR is equal to the price for this firm. So 60 it is. And now we're going to use the rule MR equals MC. And we're going to compare these values, the MR values, to the MC values. Now, 60 is bigger than 30. That's good. We should, definitely produce. 60 is bigger than 20. 60 is bigger than 30. 60 is bigger than 45. 60 is less than 70. So we should definitely not produce the 5th unit. So we should produce the 4th unit. This is where it's going to profit maximize. We actually know this without actually figuring out the profits, but let's solve it and see what happens. Let's see if I was totally wrong in my math again. So the first one, total revenue was 0, total cost was 10, so it's actually a loss of 10. The next one, 60 minus 40 is 20, and then 120 minus 60 is 60. 180 minus 90 is 90. 240 minus 135 is 105. And then 300 minus 205 is 95. So it does indeed prove true that we should produce 4 units. So hopefully this helps you. I'll see you next time.